The Centre presents a new podcast, CBmE U, a podcast devoted to promoting awareness and debate around controversial ethical issues in biomedicine.
Hello, welcome to CBmE and U. My name's James, Research Fellow at the Centre for Biomedical Ethics.
And my name is Sinead, also a Research Fellow here at CBmE.
Today, we welcome Dr. Barry Solaiman, Assistant Professor of Law at Hamad Bin Khalifa University and co-editor of the forthcoming book, AI, Health and the Law. Welcome, Dr. Barry.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not bad. Getting used to the humidity of Singapore. But it's not too bad,
What humidity?
It's not too bad, actually.
I couldn't feel it myself.
It's not too bad.
Thank you for coming in. We're really excited to have you on the pod today. We have a couple of quick questions to get to know you a little bit better. First question is, what country would you like to travel to the most?
Japan.
Interesting.
Well, I'd say I'd like to. I've been like 5 times. But I would keep going back there if the choice was there.
That is a valid choice. I also concur with that choice.
When you go back, are you doing the same things or the new things that you want to discover?
I've been to Tokyo twice and Kyoto 3 times. But what you find is that there is like so many layers to these cities. So you spend time in different parts of them for a long time. And you find all of the subcultures and things going on. It's really fun.
Agreed. Next question is coffee or copy?
Coffee.
Yeah, that's fair.
Although I like both.
So for our listeners, just to reference, we've given Barry his first copy. I'm assuming this is your first one?
Copy?
Copy?
Actually, I don't think it is I've had something very similar.
Okay.
But it's nice. I like it. But the reason I say coffee is because it's healthier. Just a plain Americano.
Okay, so we have some consistent guests on the podcast preferring coffee for health reasons. And I just want to say I think we need to get a different selection of guests.
I'll just leave now.
Or as representatives for the Centre of Biomedical Ethics.
Yeah, promoting health. So last question is, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis.
I don't know this
one.
Could you give us a...
Oh, come on. Like, whenever that plays in a bar or something, everyone sings along. It's great. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm very disappointed by the reactions to that. They haven't got a clue what I'm talking about.
I know, when I think Oasis, I only think of Anyway, here's Wonderwall.
Wonderwall, yeah. Wonderwall's too obvious, though. Don't Look Back in Anger is the one that people really enjoy. Well, both. Anyway.
Okay, I wish I could say that's a great song, but I've never heard this song before. So good job.
Okay.
All right. Now for some substantive questions, the reason why we're here. So the first question is this. You have written previously on AI and done a lot of research on AI ethics and AI and the regulation of AI issues. So firstly, what drives your interest in AI? And what are the things that you find really interesting or promising about it? And how does that influence your research?
What drives it? I think, so I just like, I like technology. I find technology interesting, and I always have. So for me, as an academic, the question was when I came to do healthcare law, because before I did my current job as assistant professor, I did my PhD, and it didn't have anything to do with healthcare law. It was constitutional law, and it was lobbying of government and parliament. But then when I started this job, they needed someone to teach healthcare law. So I said, okay, I can do it. I'll adapt. I'll learn as the opportunity was there. And once I started doing healthcare law, then I had to ask, where can I add value to the field? Because if I'm writing in traditional areas that established professors are already writing in, then I'm not going to really be able to add much to what they've been doing for decades. And at that time, about 5 years ago, there was a handful of professors, mainly in America, who were writing about AI and healthcare. And I like tech. And I was a little bit interested in AI just from my general interest in technology. So that's what got me into it. I thought maybe I can add value here. Maybe this is something I can rapidly learn. There aren't many people doing it. And I can work with the people who are doing it quite early on. So that's what led me to it. It was more of that process rather than like a specific issue in health that grabbed me, that made me feel so terrible that drew me to it. No, it was like this like deductive process leading to that choice.
And now 5 years later, everybody's doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially this year since ChatGPT came out. That's it. Everyone is now the expert. Everyone is writing about it, talking about it. So yeah, it feels good that we were doing it many years ago, and the people doing it even before me in health and law. AI generally, we know, has been going for decades. It's actually been going since the 1940s was when AI started in very rudimentary ways. In healthcare, it was used in very simplistic ways from the late 60s and 70s. So it's not new, but healthcare lawyers and bioethicists that have come to the table has only really started 5 years ago. I think the earliest writings I could see at least were 2014, but there were only like one or two pieces. And that was my co-editor for the book, Glenn Cohen. He wrote something, I think, 2014. So, yeah. So that's...
You get to say you were on it before it became cool. Or just when it was starting to become cool.
Maybe. I haven't really thought about that, perhaps. Yeah, before at least everybody was talking about it. Yeah. But that means now I do have to sift through what is actually good scholarship and what isn't. Because everybody's writing about it. And I'm curious what people actually... When I started, I also went and actually learnt about AI. I did 2 courses on AI. I sat down with computer scientists in my university and said, teach me about AI. I don't know anything. And my brother's a computer scientist too. So I sat down with people who actually, and also AI developers in my university who develop algorithms. I'm part of a research project. So I like to sit down with people and just learn the technology itself before actually then discussing the law.
Well, that's perfect, because I was hoping you could tell us some examples of actual AI devices in use in healthcare at the moment. Maybe if you have some leading successful examples, or maybe some examples of someone that we tried and then we quickly realized it wasn't working.
So it's not so transparent from all the hospitals around the world what they're using. If we just take a big picture look at things, there are some leading hospitals in the US which have used AI for some time, and they've experimented with different systems. Some have been successful, some haven't. Nowadays, we see more hospitals using them. NHS in the UK also trialed some wearable AI devices quite broadly a few years ago. I would say now my feeling is that China's really taking a lead. It seems they're doing a lot in healthcare, and I don't know enough about what they're doing. That's like something I want to look at in the future, a bit more research. But in terms of specific things, it's been used in all sorts of ways. So scans is one like big area, scanning images like for tumors. So might scan an X-ray or look at multiple X-rays or MRI scans, CT scans. You feed the image data into an AI system and it can determine with greater accuracy than a doctor if the person actually has a cancerous tumor or not. And these are being used in practice to support doctors. There are also like wearables. So in the past, let's say you've been discharged from an intensive care unit. One of the issues with that is if you've had some major surgery, you're in an intensive care unit, you then leave, you have to come back at points in time in the future to be tested to see how you're progressing. But the problem is, say if you come back 3 months later and then 6 months later and 9 months later, you get a snapshot in time of that person's health. It doesn't actually give you the full picture of what's going on day to day. So there have been uses of wearable devices that are constantly tracking people's vitals, integrated with AI. AI is assessing those vital signs of that person on a day-to-day basis and can pick up problems before they actually happen. And they can alert the doctor and say, this person's vitals are showing concerns in this way. And then there are lots of other ones. So I've written about the use of AI in psychiatric wards. It hasn't happened yet, but there are developers who are developing this. So you might have a camera pointed towards a bed, and it can detect if somebody's fallen from the bed and alert the staff. Or there is AI used in suicide prediction, able to predict the likelihood of suicide. Contraband detection, seeing if somebody may have some contraband they're not allowed in a psychiatric unit. Or this is used in prisons at the moment, but I think it could be used in psychiatric units one day. So it might detect if somebody's got something they might harm themselves with, or even facial expressions, or even they can be used to listen in on phone calls. Like, these are more futuristic ones that are coming, but I mean, there's all sorts of applications. There are books on this dedicated just to the applications, loads of them now.
You started off there and I got really excited about some of those. I was like, yay, like we can process so many more patients in a day. We can save radiologists so much more time. And then as you continued going down that list, I progressively got a bit more anxious as you talked about some of the applications. And, my mind is just buzz firing things like right to privacy, overuse, particularly if someone else has access to that data through a slip in regulation, which means they can use it for other means, and data is biased. So I was wondering if we could just talk a little bit more about maybe how you see some of those and whether or not that's the same way that, I might see it, with a bit of fear, a bit of anxiety.
Yeah, of course. And actually, so do the developers themselves and those in health. So I published an article in a journal called JAMDA, Journal of the Association of Medical Directors, which was about people in post-acute and long-term care. In those circumstances, the problem is that AI systems, they don't have enough data to be trained on. And so the accuracy in that context, say if you've got a camera in a unit where a resident is living, they might not actually be very accurate at making predictions. And there are really big privacy concerns, like the residents just don't like having a camera watching them. And so some developers have just decided, you know what, we're not going to use it. We're not going to develop these anymore. The privacy concerns are too high. Not many people want them. So we'll focus on other AI applications we might use. So in many cases, I would actually say because of the risks of privacy in health, there is a big limitation on developing AI systems for a lot of health applications. It's quite the limitation. Like I gave the example of psychiatric wards. I don't actually think it's going to be easy at all to develop robust AI systems to use in that context because I don't think they can get the data. I think the pushback's going to be quite hard unless they develop them in countries where data rights aren't so strong. So, but those are just a couple, there's loads of concerns. So the key concerns, if we think about what are the key concerns about AI in health, there are about 6 or 7. So the first 3 are all about data, which are data discrimination and bias. The second one's data privacy. Third one's data security. Then you've got concerns about medical liability, informed consent, and intellectual property. These are the broad, those are, I think there's 6 I listed there. Those are the 6 core concerns you find no matter what the AI application is in health, those arise. And they arise to different degrees depending on the context. So in some contexts, medical liability might be more of a worry. In other contexts, it might be data privacy. In others, it might be bias. In others, it might be IP. So these play out in different ways, and the balance needs to be found between these 6 for something to come to market and be safe and robust to use in practice. That's what we've identified in our book too. And actually, there's very little development in the law in any of these areas. Very little. So
when you started talking about mental health, there was another question that popped into my head, or another issue that popped into my head, and that's that sometimes predictions can actually affect the outcome. For example, if you tell me, oh, you're going to fall sick tomorrow, that's it. I might fall sick tomorrow, and your prediction in that case will come true. But if you tell me, oh, you're going to behave like this tomorrow, I might think, you know what? Screw you. I guess I won't do it now. Do you think, are there any distinct ethical issues that arise in that kind of case? I call it the "That's So Raven" problem for all the people who know that.
That's a good one. I love that.
Reference.
Have you seen that?
no, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
Now I don't get your cultural reference.
It's this Disney Channel show in the late 90s, I think.
Maybe 2000s. Anyway, just the character, she just gets visions of, the future, so then she can act around it and make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay. But what's the concern though there? So I'm trying to understand so the concern is what people might act a certain way if AI.
Yeah, if we have a program that predicts if somebody is going to self-harm or even commit suicide, will that actually affect the rates at which people actually end up harming themselves?
I think it's more like a diagnostic. We do it anyway, this stuff. So so in suicide prediction, they'll do a survey. They'll meet with someone and say, they'll do the survey to determine suicide risk. I don't know if that affects their behavior. It might do, but I don't think AI changes that. It's just a more advanced tool for doing that. I think the way AI might affect behaviors is I gave the example of elder care. So one of the tools in elder care is social robots, care bots, that residents may interact with and they may form a bond with. And so that raises questions of how that affects their behavior day to day. Some of them form such a strong bond, they don't want to let them go. And so what does that say about their autonomy? Another one is, again, in this residence context in post-acute and long-term care, if somebody is going to, it's interesting, a person's being detected by AI all the time so that if they spend too long in the toilet, it will alert their family that something might have gone wrong. But that means it's affected their behavior in terms of now they're nervous and they're rushing every time they go to the bathroom because they don't want the alarm to go off. So it can affect behaviors in this way, I would say. Less so than, the more diagnostic bits that you just mentioned, from what I can tell anyway.
No more scrolling on your phone on the toilet.
No, I mean, that was a worry. That's why they'd go in and rush back in. I mean, that's nowhere to live. You can't live like that.
Basic rights is your toilet phone time.
Exactly.
I need to enjoy my time on the throne.
On the throne.
Look, I'm loving the direction of this chat, but I'm just going to wheel it straight back. So my next question is the very first problem that you actually raised, the first of those 6. So I'm particularly interested in the nature of bias in big data. Particularly, I read this really, really great book. I don't know if you've heard of it, called Invisible Women. I think it's by Carolyn something Perez. I'll have to put the link in the podcast notes when we upload it. But basically, she goes through every facet of a woman's life, public and private, to show that there is just fundamentally data lacking on pretty much everything. And she has one particular chapter on medicine and health. And this, she said so many things I didn't even know, like paracetamol wasn't even clinically trialed on women until 2015 or 2016. There's just so much data lacking on the way the female body works. And the way the female body responds to drug treatment, to medical treatment. Women have a 50% higher chance of dying from a heart attack than men because they are funded, at the core of it, misdiagnosed most of the time because we present differently. And I was just wondering if you were aware of any way that we can both implement AI, which has amazing, particularly medical imaging, things like breast cancer. They have amazing uses for women. But also, are we going to just continue to reperpetrate bias and continue to cause harm?
So I think we can add a few more layers to that. She's right that there's definitely data lacking for women, but I would actually say there's data lacking for men too. So I'd say there's data lacking across the board everywhere. The core amount of data that's used to train AI comes out of a few elite research centers in the US, and in perhaps there are some in Europe that I'm not aware of, but it's basically a very, very small number of elite research centers, and what they're able to do in their studies, because they've managed to get funding. That's not a criticism of them. They can only do what they can within the confines of what they've got, and there's only so much you can do in a research project, and they're so hard to run. But they are the ones who've managed to get the funding for this very expensive research, and so the pool of data that they produced is tiny. So actually, there's a huge gap across the board on almost every factor. We could talk about cultural reasons. We could talk about matters of culture that might feed into decisions of health, matters of religion, demographics across the, you talk about women, that might be true. It might be true in America that there's more data regarding men's health in the US, for example. But what I would say is, in the Middle East, there's no data about anyone. There's no big research centers really pulling in lots of data to train AI systems in a big systematic way, or in the African continent, or in South America, and so on. So what's needed really to have as much data as possible to sort of train AI systems in a way that, like biases, we just need a lot more data across the board from around the world. And I can't see how it's going to be done easily, honestly. I was discussing this with somebody recently. Do we just need lots of big research centers dotted around the world in different demographics, all creating data that then we pool to train AI systems? Maybe. How possible is that? I don't know. It doesn't sound very likely to me. So What we do in the meantime, I don't know. Honestly, it's if those are still the ones running the show, these elite centers, then at least they have to try and balance the type of data they're getting if we're relying on them for now. But that's just a very short-term stopgap solution. We need actually data coming from all around the world. One analogy I could draw is I saw a talk about, it was a bioethics talk, and it was about, I think it was something about, somebody presented about the use of, because I think there's an analogy in here actually. Yeah, somebody presented, I believe, about there was the colonization of bioethics, right? Like bioethics, they put forward, has been colonized by Western academia, which caused me to reflect and go, in my opinion, not really. Bioethics arose out of Western academia, created it. It didn't colonize a field, it created a field. But the point they were making was there wasn't a balance of different views. But my solution in my mind was, well, then it's up to other demographics and groups around the world to contribute to the conversation and develop capacity. And I've seen that, for example, in the Middle East. So we could argue that Islamic bioethics hasn't been considered enough in the discourse. So what have they done in HBKU? We have an Islamic Bioethics Center. They produce loads of research. They hold the World Congress on Bioethics in Doha. And so I see that in a way, I think there's an analogy there for AI, which is we need people from around the world to start creating their own centers, creating their own data, contributing to it, and changing the conversation. Like it's almost like we just can't rely on just the same groups of people to fix problems. They won't. Like you need others to come on board and contribute to that. I think that's a very long-winded answer.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know about the big data missing problem. So that's been a real eye-opener for me. And I'm intrigued by the fact that you said you don't know how it's going to go. Like, we just need more data, but we're not sure how to actually get it.
Can I jump in on the data thing too? Because there was one interesting example. The data point, the accuracy of AI systems can easily be affected. So there have been AI systems that have been trained on demographics in one state in the US, then used on patient populations in other states, and they weren't very accurate. And that's even within the same country. So it just shows you, even within one country, because your demographics can be quite diverse, you can have quite inaccurate systems. So
we can start to undo that fear that there's going to be this one big mega AI bot that's going to take over the world and it's going to apply in all situations. We really need contextual AI driven by the communities in those places.
Yeah, but might not happen though.
We need contextual AI overlords. It's customized to every situation.
Title of the podcast.
Yeah. On this note, one of the questions we really wanted to ask was that, given that you've written a lot on why we currently don't have enough laws and regulations about the use of AI in healthcare, we were just wondering why we can't just repurpose existing laws or just apply existing laws to whatever the issues are. For example, we already have privacy laws and we already have torts. We already have laws about informed consent. Why can't we just take those, apply them to the use of AI in healthcare, and bada bing, bada boom, all our issues disappear?
That was the first step. So there's been a 4-stage process on development from what you're, I think, referencing is something I've written about in a article from AI to law. So there's been a 4-stage process on this path that we have to law. First stage was you have AI posing challenges that didn't exist before. For example, before you might have locked algorithms. They produce the same result every time. AI has adaptive algorithms, so you might have a different result over time. What you approve now might not be what exists 6 months down the line that you initially approved because the algorithms would have changed. And so, and there are other issues which make AI unique. So that's been the first thing. So the first thing is you've got this new challenges posed by technology. So the second stage of what happened was that lawyers then looked to see how do we adapt existing laws to deal with those problems. And they found that You cannot adapt existing laws only up to a certain point. They help. They answer some questions, but not every question. And actually, there are new questions that AI poses that we can't answer with existing laws. It hasn't even gone to court in many cases. These cases haven't been tried, tested. So that what you've mentioned has kind of happened already. There's been a big process of that, mainly in tort law and or injury laws, it's called in some places. But it's only taken us so far. So then what's happened in the third step is that you've had all of these guidelines developing around the world as a stopgap to plug the gap while we're still figuring out what the answer is. And a lot of these guidelines will have lots of principles. Like you've got them from the World Health Organization, OECD. There are hundreds of them now. Most of them are not very good. But there are some good ones. We developed I've developed last 3 years some guidelines in Qatar for the use of AI in healthcare research, very granular, detailed guidelines. Anyway, so then the fourth stage is now actually we need to create new law. And they're kind of informed by the first three stages. What was the problem that we had? Why didn't the law that we tried to adapt not adapt very well? What gaps did the guidelines plug? And can we take all of that and create a new law which kind of starts to remedy some of those problems? And you can't, I think, just make one law that remedies all of those problems. You either have to amend existing laws or create laws in lots of bespoke areas to deal with that issue. And that process is, like I mentioned, only just beginning. It's a very, very new process with the AI Act and some medical device regulations.
We have one final question. James, would you do the honors?
I will do the honors. So, if you could snap your fingers and change one specific thing instantly, what would it be?
Oh my God. Okay.
What's your Thanos moment?
What's my what?
Thanos moment.
Thanos moment.
Yeah.
That's
You have all
new
6
title
stones.
for the question.
Yeah.
The Thanos question.
Yeah, the Thanos question. You have all 6 stones. What are you going to change? But it's really, really underpowered stones. You cannot just solve everything.
Okay. And this is kind of a cheat. If I was Thanos, I could snap my fingers and change one thing. I would change... Okay. This is going to sound ridiculous. I would change the nature of who I am so that I can have superpowers to have unlimited wishes.
Oh.
Okay, new rule.
So then I can change many things.
You know what? Legal scholar, we did not actually put any qualifiers on it.
We'll get our lawyers on this too. Right now.
But
rewrite
if
the
you want me,
question.
if I have to, if that's prohibited, which I don't think it should be, because as you say, it didn't stipulate. If I had to choose one thing, that's really difficult.
Maybe just something about AI, if you want.
No, I like the bigger one. I like
All
grappling
right.
with these existential.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's so many aspects. It's actually really like, what do I want to solve? Do I want to solve? It's asking me to reflect deeply. Do I want to solve all the health problems in the world and make it go away, or do I want to solve? I suppose. I mean, you know what? I think if there's one thing, if I could click my fingers, that I would do, is have the instant solution to the organization of society across the globe. And by that, I mean that we have different ways of organizing society around the world, whether it's democracy, autocracy, communism. There are loads of different ways of organizing society, and each way, you could argue, has its positives and negatives. But then there are always negatives in every aspect, which I think leads to problems in society for like the future. How do we solve problems as a society? What do we look like as a human race for the future? So if I could click my fingers, it would be the solution to that. We have that one system that just works for the world, where it finds that perfect balance where we organize society in a way that we can solve our problems. People can live in good lives, but in harmony, in a way that takes care of the issues that we have. And we have this sort of a collective vision for where we're going as an entire race for the planet. So that's quite a big one, but I think that's probably what I would try and find the solution to if I could click my fingers.
If you click your fingers and created an organization, would it then not make you the organizing principle?
You are Thanos.
Well, Maybe this is revealing about me. No, I would see the perfect system. I don't think revolves around a single person, but it's who it revolves around. I don't know what that answer is. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the perfect system is. Honestly,
Well,
they're all flawed.
we wish you the best in that endeavour.
Well, I
When
don't
you
get to
figure it
kick
out,
my
let us
fingers.
know.
Well, yeah.
If you walk out of here, just snapping your fingers. We are so grateful that you took some time out of your day to come on the pod.
thanks
You're
for
welcome
having me.
back anytime. And I do want to know if you finished the rest of that copy.
I drank about 65% of the coffee.
Well, congrats.
It was good.
Good effort.
Yeah.
Good effort.
But now I'm hydrating with water.
Well, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks for listening to our new podcast. Subscribe online and tune in every first of the month. In the meantime, listen to CBmE U and be savvy. Remember, Savalescu to the rescue.